Hey there, Friday Night Movie family. This is a very special South by Southwest edition of the podcast. We will be in Austin on the ground at the Wonder House, which is being put on by the amazing folks at the University of Arizona. It's taking place at Cafe Blue, downtown Austin, March 11th through 14th. We'll be there every day from about noon to 5, recording the show with amazing filmmakers and actors and creators. But as usual, we also invite audience members to come up and be on the show, and we'll definitely have some amazing swag to give away. So make sure to follow us at Friday Night Movie on all of the socials, and come and see us at the Wonder House in Austin. And welcome to an episode of the Friday Night Movie podcast that is from a galaxy far, far away. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's far away at all, because with us we have, as part of our special South by Southwest coverage, Jeremy Coon and Steve Kozak, the directors of A Disturbance in the Force, the documentary that tells the history of the famous, infamous, I don't even know how to describe it, especially after seeing this film, Star Wars Holiday Special. Jeremy and Steve, welcome to the family.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So you told a story. I feel like, okay, there are stories that are passed down through myth, and then at some point, someone writes down the story, right? At some point, someone wrote the Bible, someone wrote down Hansel.
I want to be very clear. We are comparing this to the Bible.
Yes.
That is what Shai is saying.
I'm saying.
Wow.
It's accurate.
Wow.
How did you all corner the spot to be the ones to tell this story? What did you have to go through to say, okay, we're gonna finally put this story that's been in message boards and interviews and in pockets of the internet,
Lore and just
but we
lore.
are going to tell this story.
I mean, I think the best gateway is, so Steve's dad was Bob Hope's agent, so he knew all the, I'm going to Steve take it from here, but I think that's kind of the secret sauce, the gateway to it, where that's something that I would have a hard time tracking some of these people down, but he knew a lot of these people that actually made it.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's funny because, I mean, I was a fan, I'm a big Star Wars fan like everyone else. But I just never, I didn't have this like obsession to tell the story. I just started looking into it one day, and I started to realize how many people I knew from the special, that because it was in the world of TV variety and I had grown up, my dad produced those actual Bob Hope specials. And he'll have to atone for that. There's
Well, I think one of the most powerful and amazing things that you do with the film is right away you situate it in its actual proper context, which I feel like no one ever
does that. It is in the context of everyone was making specials about everything with like that was the cool thing to do, was to make a special. So it wasn't strange. It wasn't out of nowhere to make a Star Wars special, because it was the most popular film doing the most popular thing on TV. No one talks about that.
I will say what was so exciting about working with Jeremy was that I had talked to a couple of people about it that were experts in, production side of it. And he was like the first one that acknowledged that he didn't want to make it just an hour and a half version of a internet thing where they just say how stupid it is and how dumb
right.
And he really was interested in this year and a half period after Star Wars came out, this uncomfortable thing where they just didn't know what to do with it and were saying yes to things maybe that they should have said no to. And
I
Well,
love
a lot
that
of
context.
love. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, and a lot of that, I feel like that's such an important lesson just for the world today. I think people are often looking back at the lens of the history with today's knowledge and saying you should have done this and you should have done that. And I thought you did a beautiful job of putting us in George Lucas's shoes, and I feel like the world has gone so far from being empathetic to George Lucas. I walked away from this extremely empathetic to George. Jeremy and Steve, how did you get into the mindset of George?
So that was by accident.
You should take
Yeah. So I initially was part of the group where it's like, screw Lucas, it's so dumb. Why is he not own this? And then at the end of this, I was like you said, I felt very empathetic for him, where I'm like, this is just a small footnote of like something he's trying to do. And like, he doesn't want to go away. He's just more like, pay attention to what else I've done. This is such a small footnote. And it's also like, he's created the biggest film that's ever been made to that point. And he's like in his 30s and he's just trying to like figure out how best way to monetize it and make the next one. But yeah, that's great to hear that you empathize with him, because that's exactly how we felt, at least how I felt making it.
And the love comes through in the documentary. Yeah. There are moments where you appreciate people who are so knowledgeable being like, this is so stupid, or how did this happen? Yeah. Because there are some ridiculous moments, but the love of overall Star Wars and the love of anything Star Wars in the end is, you know, so important to the fans that even the ridiculousness.
I think where the love really comes through is the people who were not involved in the making of this at all: Kevin Smith, Paul Scheer, Seth Green. You know, you have who are commenting on it and giving their fan opinion and the little bits of information. Your selection of those folks is really where you feel that shared love, because you know they care about it as much as we do. So great job also, there.
Some people were kids. Also, some people were kids, right, when this eventually got to them. And so I loved hearing from the people in the film who saw it as kids. And we're like, why wouldn't a kid like this?
Yeah, well, I think everyone has their own entry point to it. Like, I didn't see it until 2002. So I was like in my 20s when I saw it. I was born the year after it came out.
So I'm wondering, of those wonderful interviews, those new voices that you brought in, a lot of stuff had to have been left on the cutting room floor that we didn't get to see. And I was watching it wondering, what else did they say? Were there any other great moments that you had that didn't make the final cut because of time or context or where the story went? Yeah. Any great bits you can share?
So Kevin Smith is gold. Everything he says, I think, is great. He had a whole thing that I thought was great so Kevin Smith was like 6, I think. Maybe he was like 8 or 9. He was like old, but not that old. Right. But in his mind, he associated, you either saw a film or it was the news, and news was what TV looked like. So when he saw Star Wars, it confused him because it looked like the news.
Amazing.
And he didn't know why it looked like the news. So I love that. It was just, it was hard to find a way to put that in somewhere, right. But stuff like that is just great.
That's so
one of the. Can I say?
Go ahead, Steve.
And I think, and Jeremy, who edited, was challenged with these brilliant comedians we had. And I mean, I have to say, it was really hard to keep enough of Gilbert Gottfried in.
Oh, he was so funny.
Just so over the top. I mean, there was just so much unairable stuff that he aired. I was in fact, Jeremy, I've never even asked you this. There's my laugh track is so visible. So here ought to be, it's messing up the interview. I know, because I can't stop. I'm in pain because he's so over the top. That was kind of disappointing. I wish I could have used more of him, but he just, he's that personality. He just was a little too grating to have too much of him in there.
And rest in peace. We unfortunately can't get him back for another interview. But actually, he's not someone I immediately associate with Star Wars. What was the entry point of Gilbert Gottfried? Like Kevin Smith, Paul Scheer, Seth Green, Weird Al. Those are all in the film. I think Star Wars. What was Gilbert Gottfried's connection?
Well, Gilbert Gottfried had an amazing, and if you guys are fans of old television, he had this amazing podcast. It was something called like Gilbert Gottfried's Colossal Podcast, and he used to do an hour. He interviewed Bruce Vilanch, who was one of the writers, for an hour. 30 minutes of it was probably about the special, about the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, about the Paul Lynde Halloween special. I mean, the guy cornered the market in the worst television ever. But to me, he was a great. I remember he just made sense because he knew so much about the special. I mean, he was a huge fan. He liked to diss it a lot, so we didn't want to put in too much of it. But yeah,
Right.
You should look up some of his stuff on YouTube, talking about the special or just anything. It's just he would do like an hour interviewing Larry Storch. Just all these kind of people just sitting around doing nothing right now. So
that's wonderful. Another thing that I love about this film is that it showcases talents and celebrates the talents of Art Carney, of Bea Arthur. I felt like there's a mini love letter to Bea Arthur and Harvey Korman tucked inside this film about the film. And as someone who grew up with Bea Arthur on television, but my kids don't really know who Bea Arthur is, I love that element. What led you to, was that something you knew going in, or was that something you discovered as you talked to people?
The love of Bea Arthur?
Yeah.
Oh, no,
The love. I mean, I feel like the movie celebrates Bea Arthur. Like,
yeah, it's. I mean,
Bea Arthur's a star, right?
Who doesn't like Bea Arthur? I mean, I grew up I assume we're roughly the same age with Golden Girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Golden Girls as a kid.
I think what he means is, don't you think? I mean, I just think that she's the best part of the special.
I mean,
so you always knew you were going to highlight.
So
Bea Arthur
like that's what I'm saying.
Film.
People usually, when they talk about the special, they go, "What was Bea Arthur doing in this?" Whereas I walk away from this movie saying, well, Bea Arthur is
she was
a professional. She's at the top of her game. She was hilarious. She did the dance. She insisted on doing the dance and song. Like I walk away being like, "What a legend."
Because I feel like with you, from out of context, you think that maybe these people were forced into it, or it was some sort of, they were blackmailed and they had to be in it. But when it's put in its context, it starts to make a lot more sense how, these celebrities at the time made it into this supposedly amazing thing that was going to be on TV.
Well, I mean, think about it, at the time, it's like a day I think Bea Arthur was on set a day. And her son was a huge Star Wars fan, and the budget was $1 million, which was insane for the time period. So like all signs pointed to who would not want to be in this.
Exactly.
Now, she's also legitimately, I mean, someone asked me, name one thing that's good about the special. I'm not a huge fan of the cartoon, like everyone raves about the cartoon. I honestly think that cantina scene is really good, and I think that song is quite overly saccharine infused, and just a great moment of the time. I think it was great, that one scene. I won't move on anything else.
Have you guys seen the whole thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, the whole holiday special. Yeah,
yeah, the 90s.
First. Yeah, I mean, so I saw it in 2002, made it about 20-30 minutes into it and never finished it. And then when this kind of came up, I actually forced myself to sit and watch it on a plane. And I mean, I still find it very, I mean, I've probably watched it 6 times in the course of making this movie beginning to end.
Wow.
Just to see what other clips, make sure we didn't miss or pull stuff out of that we could basically repurpose.
Right.
But it's not, watch our movie instead of the holiday special.
I think that you can get a lot out of it from the movie. Yes.
Was it? Did you go into making this movie knowing that you could license what you wanted, or was this I'm just curious, how difficult or easy was it to?
Oh, yeah, how do you get
access to all?
And then also
footage, or is it fair use?
I'm going to piggyback on that with the footage of the people who don't like talking about this movie. You were able to use the audio and the video of them talking about how they don't like talking about it. How did that all come together?
Talking about David Akumba.
Yeah. And Lucas himself.
Stop asking me.
And Harrison Ford.
The director was only, I think I have 2 sentences from him when I called him up, and he was like, I think what you're doing is great. I just don't have anything to do with it. I've moved on,
So great.
Yeah. I mean, legal attorneys, everything's kind of a case-by-case basis. I mean, I've been in licensing for, over 20 years, and everything's kind of a case by case basis. You know, we basically have a really good, or any other production would have a good fair use to basically use some of this material as long as they commented on it appropriately. We, really spent a good deal in covering every clip we used, with a lot of commentary, a lot of discussion. We were very conservative about the amount. There's not a ton of footage in the special, used from the special in the documentary, and there's two reasons. One is we didn't want to use a lot for purposes of it's not our footage. But the other thing was it's just awful. You know, there's just a limit of how much of that you can really watch.
So,
well, apparently back in the day, they thought people could watch 9 plus minutes. No, 9 plus minutes of just Wookiees talking to each other with no subtitles.
So,
like that.
So before we get to the Wookiees, because I would say wrap. The Wookiees is kind of our grand finale. One thing I did not remember from the special was the erotic VR helmet scene with Diane Carroll.
I mean, it's very progressive.
That was excruciating to watch. Like I watched this by myself, and I was embarrassed watching just the excerpt alone. I cannot imagine people really watching this with their families.
No, yeah, that's something I wish we like. I wish Mitzi Welch was still around, because we have a soundbite. Not it was written in an article, but she said that they were just screwing with the censors, is what she said. And they just want to see how far they could push it, and that no one ever pushed back on it. Yeah,
it's very experimental.
And none of the interviews that we did, I really pressed the director. How did that happen? We pressed there was a liaison on board from Lucas, who was at every shoot through the edit base. No one ever can remember anything about it. It's almost like they just, that part's a big fog to them, because I think it's so bizarre.
It's like war. They just blacked it out.
Yeah. When you think about it, how on earth could you have been a cameraman shooting that and not remember that? I don't care if it's 100 years later. How could you not get a masturbating Wookiee? That's just something you can't get that out of your head.
I would love to have known Diane Carroll's position, because when she shot that, she had no idea it was on the other end of that.
Right.
She knows a Wookiee. So when they cut that together, I would love to know when, she called up her agent and be like, what did you get me into? Or if she had never saw it and never knew about it.
I guess it was on TV and it went away, which is another thing that was utterly disposable.
That's, something today, nothing goes away. Nothing ever goes away.
Yeah.
And, to think about this thing that has, I had the privilege of watching this with my mom, who was in her 20s when this came out, but she keeps saying to me, I think I missed it because I had like a crazy household or was busy, and Shai was not yet born. He was in 1979. So she doesn't have that excuse, but she's like, I guess I was working. I don't know. But when I was like, well, Mom, if you missed it, you missed it. And that would have been it. But the fact that this thing has lasted so long, so that she now at 69 years old could have seen it. And she went to see Star Wars when it opened and everything. It was so joyful to watch this with her, and just ask all these questions. But it was also excellent to watch it being placed in its time, in the sense that people were not attached to these characters the way we are now, and that Star Wars wasn't what it means to us now then. And they had all this, and it wasn't just the special, like the Donny Osmond, which is a show my mom watched, the Donny Marie show, and all the other things that they did at the time for marketing, as if the most they said people would forget. And how many years have we waited for Avatar?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like Kevin brought this up too, but so Darth Vader, like the best villain ever. I totally forgot. In 94, they did a Duracell commercial where his lightsaber pitches out,
runs out of battery.
You're like, why was not a huge uproar about that back then? That's totally insulting at the time.
Right? Exactly. That's a great point. Right. That's a really great point.
So, let's talk Wookiees for a moment.
All right, Brandon.
All right. So the Wookiee part is in a weird way is like my favorite part because it feels the most it feels the most Star Wars. There's like a
Hot
plot,
take.
Life
Hot
Day,
take.
getting a view into Chewbacca's family.
Well, I also love the research is done about how Life Day permeates our culture in so many ways. And when someone asked Lucas and Favreau asked Lucas, it's not canon. It's canon, right? And he's like, no, it's not. But it's part of our culture.
And so Life Day and the Wookiees, I love that element of the movie. Also, I mean, you have the Empire, you see, people talk about Andor showing the harshness of the Empire. You see the Empire kind of accosting the Wookiees in their house and interrogating them, a little bit of, you feel the fascism there. So I always like the Wookiee part.
Actually,
now,
let me just throw in one.
Go for it.
The writers, I don't know if it's not in the cut. It might not be in the final cut. One of the writers said that Lucas had told him that the stormtroopers are like Nazis, and the Wookiees are like the Jews.
Well,
that's Lucas.
I mean, being Jews, I think that's a little bit what I identified in that Wookiee story. That stressed me out about is like, here you are, you're trying to live your life with your family, and you have
people knocking at the door.
Well, I'd also think, this is what,
and it's a musical variety special
post World War II. It's not that long.
It's not
afterwards.
Not that long after.
Yeah. Just because, so I think that is a oddly insightful thing. So, okay, let's get into the Wookiees here.
Yeah.
Now, they talked lumpy and itchy, which is a thing of, one of the biggest sort of things they talk about is how two of the Wookiees' names are lumpy and itchy, except that Chewbacca's name is Chewie. His nickname is Chewie.
No, but his name is Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And they call him
nickname.
Chewie but also Chewie as a nickname is like a nickname that
although Itchy's a nickname too. He has longer. Yeah, he has some. He's actually referenced in the Solo script. It's like I can't pronounce it. It starts with an A and it's a big long name.
So
Itchy's a nickname.
Shai, didn't we had a Zeta Itchemeyer, and I feel like we could have called him Itchy for short. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Our one of our Zadies.
One of our Zadies was an Itchy.
But lumpy. I'm not sure there's an excuse for
lumpy.
And
lumpy.
What's lumpy short for?
So Jeremy, if you could pick your own Wookiee nickname, what would it be? I'm sure you're going to get lots of goofy questions talking about a Star Wars movie about the holiday special. So allow me to ask this one.
I'll go with Grumpy. I'll steal a dwarf.
Grumpy. Okay.
That's good.
and Steve, how about you?
Well, in the original name of the I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the planet, Kashyyyk. The original name is Kazak, Kazzok or something like that.
Wow.
Is my exact name, switching the O and the A. So that's my little Star Wars name.
That's amazing.
I love it. See, the Wookiees are telling us so much. Okay, if there is one person aside from George Lucas, or if one cast member, let's put it this way, if there's one cast member you could have sat down with from any of the original Star Wars or the holiday special to do your own in-person interview, who would it be? What would you ask them?
I think it'd have to be Mark Hamill for me, just because he's the one that seems to be the most embracing. Like, he tweets about it and seems to have a sense of humor about it. Like, I think he'd be the most fun.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be it always, a lot of things bum me out about The Last Jedi, but killing him off has always bummed me out because of all of the people who used to be in Star Wars. He seems like the one who's into it the most.
Yeah.
And so it'd be fun.
Like Harrison Ford would be great, but I can't imagine that he'd be.
You're going to get much out of him.
Yeah. Talk about grumpy. I assume that would be that.
Yeah.
When he sat down, and then he's got to handle all the questions if he sat down for us.
Yeah.
And he'd be dead. Yeah. Ugh.
How about you, Steve? Is there someone you want to sit down with?
No, I would say the same thing. I think that his involvement is fascinating. There's that whole thing about him getting into the car accident, and people think his face is kind of weird.
That was that was huge. the
My
revelation.
mom's been telling me since I was
she
born
was shocked
that he got into a car accident and messed up his face.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
I would have a ton of questions. I agree with Jeremy. That's probably he'd be by far well, I don't know. I actually think if Carrie Fisher were alive, she would have given us probably the best interview because she was wonderfully outspoken at conferences about it. So.
And she was so funny. Oh my goodness, so wonderful. All right. Before we get out, Adam F. Goldberg, creator of the Goldbergs, one of our favorite humans in pop culture, because we're big Goldbergs fans. He was involved in making the film. What's Adam's connection to the film, and the Goldbergs piece of this? How did that play into all of this?
As Jeremy would know that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've known Kyle Newman, who's also a producer on this, forever, and Kyle's friends with Adam, and he's like, you should bring Adam on this. But we basically wanted kind of like a big dog like him to come in. Like, he's someone, like, we got Kevin Smith because of Adam, because he's friends with them. It's just nice to have someone like that in our corner, and he's like fun to work with, and it's just like, what can I do to help? Like, you couldn't ask for a better partner. So like it's we call him up when we needed favors. We're like, hey, can we get in touch with so and so? Can you help with that? And he's like, yeah,
awesome.
I'll find.
That's
I'll
wonderful.
hop on it.
Oh,
plus that footage of Murr being like, couldn't they have spent 15 more seconds naming the characters? It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfection.
Well, one of the great lessons of your film, Disturbance in the Force, premiering at South by Southwest. Do you want to give like the time and the date and the theater? And all
we're March 11th, Austin, Texas. So March 11th, 8:45, Lamar. And we have another screenings on Tuesday and Wednesday, which has advanced tickets. So the premiere doesn't have advanced tickets, but if you're in Austin, you can get tickets for $25 on the website there. Or if you go to our website, it's holidayspecialdoc.com. There's links there.
Well, it's gonna be a party. I bet.
We loved it. We hope everybody gets
Everybody's
a chance to
gonna
see
love
this.
it. I can't wait
at the
till
festival. Don't miss it. It's going to be such a scene.
And then
be
beyond
so
the
fun.
festival, I'm excited for everybody in the future to be able to see it.
That's great. We want people to have a good time watching it. So that's the whole reason. Just light, fun, enjoy.
I literally videotaped my mom watching it to send to my siblings because of how much fun she was having. It was great.
Are you the favorite of the three? Is that why you got to watch it with her?
No.
She just happens to be visiting me right now. Shai's definitely the favorite. Shai's the favorite.
Okay.
But she just happens to be visiting
Goldberg
me.
of our family.
Yes, exactly. He's the schmoopy, but she happened to be visiting me and got the privilege of watching it with me. Or I had the privilege of watching with her. So
excellent.
we loved it.
Quite an honor to hear your positive feedback. You know, Jeremy's been doing films like this for many years and has had very, very respected films with Napoleon Dynamite and Raiders. This is not as much of a mind blower as it is probably for me to see just three people raving about a film that we did. So thank you very much. It's quite an honor to see your reaction.
Thank you guys.
Thank you both.
It was wonderful.
Congratulations. Disturbance in the Force. It's a special film. And I think it's a reminder to everybody, including myself, who gets worked up about fandom and Star Wars, that A, everything belongs in its context, and B, there's something to love in every corner and aspect of this, and a new way to look at it. And Jeremy Coon, Steve Kozak, beautiful storytellers. And we're just so thrilled that we got a chance to talk to you and see the film. Congratulations.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time to talk with us.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, all. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Friday Night Movie, the sibling rivalry and pop culture podcast. Join the Friday Night Movie family by following @FriNightMovie on all of the socials and visiting our website, FryNightMovie.com. Our theme song is by What Does It Eat? And make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.